Anyone who's familiar with LEGO Technic knows exactly how complex the functions are. In the past 5 decades, there has been major innovation. What are the 10 most difficult functions and sets to build? Without any further ado, let's begin. Here we have mechanical programming, which was seen in the programmable crane of 1980 from the Quadruple 8 Ideas book. You would insert a plate with a unique arrangement of gear racks. Your specific arrangement of these gear racks would correspond to different functions of the crane executed in different order. Essentially, your specific arrangement of gear racks was like a digital program for the crane. Think about it. Instead of putting down a series of blocks on your computer, you do the same thing but with physical gear racks. That is absolutely incredible. There would be a series of gears inside the machine, and each row of gear racks on the plate corresponded to a different function. Even the chassis of the set is pretty complex due to having to gear down from a very fast motor. Personally, I greatly wish that mechanical programming would be brought back in a modern Technic set. Perhaps something massive like the Liebherr crane could be modified to be mechanically programmed. If you're fascinated with this concept and would like to uncover every single secret of LEGO Technic, then make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. No pressure though, no pressure. Next up is the LEGO Technic Mobile Crane MK2 set number 42009 from 2013. The single hand-of-God steering knob controls 4 out of the 5 sets of wheels, which makes the steering incredibly responsive, and the 5th axle connects to the V8 engine, which sits behind the cabin. There is a single motor which powers the distribution gearbox. The first function is all about the outriggers, and there is actually another secondary gearbox for the outriggers, which changes between extending them and lowering them. Look at that magic. The outriggers extend and the axles actually slide through the red gears, then you can mechanically lower them. Of course, we also get boom elevation, boom extension, as well as raising and lowering of the hook. These seem like pretty standard functions, so what makes this set so difficult to build? Well, more than any other set, you must make sure that you absolutely minimize the friction between all the gears and axles. The motor is simply not powerful enough to operate everything reliably, such as the outriggers. In the 8043 motorized excavator, there is a similar problem, however, nowhere near to the same extent as the mobile crane. Next up is the LEGO Technic Supercar 8880 from 1994. It has retractable headlights, 1,343 pieces, and despite all that, the entire build is done in a measly 36 steps. The building instructions today definitely would have been longer. Breaking Bad and this supercar share something in common. Breaking Bad is the best TV show ever made, and the 8880 is the best LEGO Technic supercar ever made. To prove its point, let's look at its features. There is suspension on every wheel, 2 shock absorbers per wheel, so 8 shocks total, each wheel is driven, and even all 4 are steered as well. There is a front differential, a rear differential, and even a central one which drives the V8 engine in the back. Speaking of the drivetrain, this set introduced the following Technic differential, which is still used till this day in modern sets such as the Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. Prior to this one, we were using the 28 tooth differential. This set also introduced the driving ring for the first time ever, which made up its 4-speed synchronized transmission. For the gearbox, the transmission gate as well as the shift lever are both unique to this set, and even the wheel hubs are unique here. The 8880 has definitely received the title of the Holy Grail among Technic fans, and I would say it is a must-have for any Technic lover. The next function is the pneumatics of the Backhoe loader 8455. Prior to the introduction of version 2 pneumatics in 2015, version 1 required you to manually cut the hoses, and you needed to have superhuman strength to connect the hoses, and in this set specifically, it can be quite tedious to thread all the hoses due to the sheer amount of them, and you have to be quite careful where you connect them all. The amount of hoses you see actually comes from cutting them. This set only contains 2 hoses, a light gray 156cm or 61.4 inch hose, as well as a 325cm or 128-inch black hose. This set is such an excellent presentation of the pneumatic system. It contains a whopping 10 pneumatic cylinders, all of which power the front and rear sections, and even the outriggers are pneumatic. On top of that, you can even rotate the rear section, not with gears, but with pneumatics. I mean, that's just insane. On top of that, it even contains 3 clear engine block pieces, which is just the cherry on top of this gem. The Land Rover Defender's gearbox is one of the most complex of any modern Technic set. We've got the 4-speed transmission along with a high and low gear multiplier which gives it 8 speeds. What makes it difficult to build is not the complexity of the gearbox itself, but rather in the original release copies of this set there was an error in the instructions where the universal joints were not aligned together. In order for them to spin as smoothly as possible, it is absolutely crucial for them to be properly aligned. It would create speed differences in the gearbox which would cause it to crack. However, even if you built it properly, if you weren't careful with minimizing friction in every single gear and axle, the gearbox still had the potential to crack. While this may seem frustrating, in my personal opinion, this is exactly what makes the oldest theme in LEGO so special. By building these sets, we're learning the effects of friction, speed and torque differences, and all kinds of wonderful stuff of real mechanisms we see in machines we use every day. The swash plate function of the Airbus H-175 rescue helicopter is easily one of the most difficult ones to build of any modern Technic set. While you're building this set, the way you link up the cabin controls to the swash plate truly shocks you, which is exactly what every LEGO Technic set is supposed to do, shock you with its breathtaking mechanisms. You may be asking, what does this mechanism actually accomplish? Well, in a helicopter, the rotor constantly spins, and in order to move forward instead of just hovering, we need to create more force on one side of the rotor in order to tilt the helicopter. By using the swash plate, we can constantly change the blade angle of each blade as they are rotating. So we can have a higher angle of each blade on the rear and a lower angle on the front, which would move the copter forward. It is truly a breathtaking mechanism that helped me understand exactly how real helicopters work. I used to be under the impression that the entire rotor tilted, but this definitely makes way more sense. The LEGO Technic 6x6 Volvo articulated hauler's gearbox is another function that's incredibly difficult to build. You must pay extra attention to the friction applied to each gear and axle, or else the gearbox becomes very noisy in the fastest third gear. I've reassembled the gearbox more times than I can count, and I still can't get the noise to go away. The Volvo actually combined the transmission and distribution gearboxes together. We got 3 motors, one for the articulated steering, one for function selection, as well as another one for driving everything. The driving motor could be selected into either one of the 3 speeds or into the dumping function. It was truly a legendary set, but not without its downsides. On top of the gearbox being exceptionally difficult to build perfectly, the only connection between the front and back portions was this tiny little turntable. As a result, the set's head would snap off very easily if you weren't holding it like a baby. When it did snap off, it would become a nightmare to repair due to having to carefully place the drive axle right in the center of that tiny turntable. Next up is the LEGO Technic Liebherr LR13000, which stands at a full meter tall, fully upright. It features 2 complex functions, the pulley system as well as weight measuring. Due to its large size, it requires careful threading of the strings, and without the assistant videos and the Control Plus app, I do not know how I would have built it. Even with the videos, this part easily took the longest amount of time for me. And I just love how the whole crane uses nothing but some pulleys and strings to make everything move together. No linear actuators. It is truly incredible. Now let's look at the weight measuring. The Control Plus hubs have internal gyro sensors, and so it's able to measure its angle. With some clever connections and a rubber band, the more you pulled on the hook, the more the top hub would tilt. Essentially, by measuring the angle, you could determine how much weight is being applied to the hook. What a creative building technique. And another set which utilized the gyro sensor is the app-controlled transformation vehicle, which would automatically flip the controls for you in the app so that you could control it seamlessly. Here we have the pneumatic loop, which was featured in the AirTech Clawregs B model. You know how you normally have to control each individual pneumatic cylinder with a lever? Well, in this case, it's all automatic. Once you simply just start the compressor motor and leave it alone, the truck will try to grab something in front of it and throw it in its rear section. Then lower the arm and open its claws again, in a cycle that will repeat until the batteries run out. If you carefully look at how this model is built, the pneumatic cylinders will also act on the switches of other cylinders. There is no programming, no remote control. It is simply a genius design, and I would love to see it return in a future pneumatic set. I mean, just look at this genius design. Before I reveal the number 1 pick, I'd like to give an honorable mention to the the LEGO Technic McLaren P1's gearbox, which for the first time in the history of LEGO Technic featured a 7-speed sequential gearbox. Every previous Technic supercar just had a 4-speed gearbox with a multiplier, so you could only have an even number of functions. That's because you could previously only shift at 90-degree intervals. The new McLaren P1 gearbox allows you to shift in 45-degree intervals. 360 divided by 45 is 8, which means it's a real 8-speed gearbox without any multipliers. The 7 speeds were achieved by replacing the 8th speed with a neutral gear. Finally, we have the legendary 8043 motorized gearbox. I'm just gonna say that every single function in this set is the most difficult to build of any Technic set, from the chassis all the way to the gearbox and even the excavator arm. The chassis uses a complex series of gears, and the axles of both tracks end up combining to pass through the center of a single turntable. You would have a single normal axle here, and it would be surrounded by a combination of driving rings which would be responsible for the other track. Once above the turntable, the two axles would be split again. It is a truly incredible thing to have two independently controlled axles pass through the center of a single turntable. The gearbox itself is even more complex. There are 4 motors, 3 of them drive functions, and the 4th one controls the changeover catches which change the gearbox. In one mode, the 3 motors would control the tracks and rotation. In the other mode, the 3 motors would control the complex arm, which is filled with axles and universal joints. Every aspect of this set is absolutely incredible, and if you would like to learn more about why it is the best Technic set ever made, then click on my detailed building review, racing brick style, right over here. This is your Unbricking here, and I'll see you in the next one.